Oh yeah, another episode, time for another 5 crucial questions for yet another Kung Fu master. This time on an island. Yeah, Kung Fu Chronicles, we are back. This time we are going to the beautiful island of Puerto Rico.
Damn! You don't even pick up Puerto Ricans here either.
Where we will check out yet another instructor. This time a little bit of home base because he is the Ying Jow Pai instructor. Ying Jow Pai Puerto Rico, they're doing the damn thing down there. If you remember, Master Thomas Torres joined us a few episodes back talking about the MMA Kung Fu controversy.
I'm actually called the old man here in Puerto Rico.
Are you the old man?
The bathroom is.
I'm the old man of Ying Jow Pai village.
If you haven't checked that video out, go ahead and do yourself a favor and check it. Also do me and us a favor by subscribing to the channel. That's the only way it can grow. And of course, you'll always be up to date with all the new material and videos that come out right here. All right, as I said, heading down to the beautiful island of Puerto Rico. Well,
not really headed down there, but
visually we'll get to visit Sifu Eric Cintron, who has a school on the island and will share his many viewpoints with us. Let's check him out.
Welcome. Come on in. Come on, we have another floor.
I'm here with Master Eric Cintron out there in Puerto Rico. How you doing?
How you doing, Kwasi? Thanks for the invitation and hello, everybody.
Yeah, I'm great, man. Thanks for doing this. Okay, so for people that don't know, obviously the two of us know each other. We're both Ying Jow Pai instructors. I've known you for a few years, but for everyone out there that may not know your history, can you tell them like how long you've been doing martial arts, when you started, kind of give them a little background?
Okay, I started at the age of 10. I'm 50 right now, so I've been doing this for 40 years.
Nice.
I started over here in the island, and I continue my studies in the States. And about 20 years ago, I joined the Shum Ying Jow Pai.
And before that, you did another style of Eagle Claw, yeah? Or
no, it's always been Eagle Claw. It was with Master Leon Fu.
Okay.
Which is associated with somehow with Lily Lau through James Lau Shikin, which is Lily Lau's little brother.
Got it. How long have you been an instructor? Yeah.
Well, I've been instructing since I was 18.
Oh,
so
wow.
we're talking about easily 32 years teaching.
Okay, so I didn't even realize you were teaching that long.
Yep.
What would you say, so on the island of Puerto Rico, what's the most popular maybe martial art there? Because just to get a vibe of the island and what people really practice out there. Do they gravitate more towards like Kung Fu, like what we do, or is it more Jiu-Jitsu, or what are people really?
Well, nowadays it's always been more karate and taekwondo than Kung Fu.
Trying to poach my students?
I just figured instead of rolling around on the mat, hugging each other, maybe they'd like to learn a real martial art.
Real martial art. Karate? Karate's a joke. It's for little kids. Basically a nanny.
Yeah? Well, Brazil sucks. Why don't you go live there?
Hey, don't talk to Master Todd that way.
You know, my dojo, I don't make the black guys call me master.
Whoa.
Kung Fu is a minority here. MMA, because it's getting famous through all these years, is getting more action lately. But most of the events are like karate and taekwondo events. Even if it's sports taekwondo, they have their own circuits.
Right.
But if it's an open system, if it's an open tournament, they have all kind of systems like taekwondo, kung fu, and karate.
When you first started training, like what was it about Eagle Claw that you were like, oh, I really like this system. This is more for me. you know?
Well, when I initially started, I used to see Shaw Brothers movies, Bruce Lee. You know, it was that time, and I was a little kid. You know, I started, like I told you, when I was of an age of 10. I used to work myself. I got my job at that age.
Yeah.
And I paid for my own tuition on the Kung Fu school because my mother wasn't, he didn't like the idea. But, you know, I like it. So, you know, I started Eagle Club because it was, I like Kung Fu more than karate or Taekwondo. And it was the only system around where I live. So, but it turns out to be, it was a good system and I like it.
Well, let's talk a little fighting, like, because everyone's talking fighting now. When students come in, do more people come in wanting to learn how to fight? Like, hey, Sifu, I want to learn how to fight. Or more people like, I like the forms too, I want to just do it for health, or is it kind of a mix?
Daniel, wanna fight, huh? Fight me!
Well, I have a mix, but more people obviously for fighting than for doing forms. It's gonna be depending on us, instructors or Sifus, how to teach and when to teach certain stuff. Our curriculum is practically like my Sifu Julio Perez and Tomas Torres teach me, and I guess it's the Shum's way. They always say it's 1 hour forms, the rest 2 hours is gonna be fighting, right? So in Puerto Rico, we love to fight. We are an island of people that love the fighting. You know, we have famous boxers. For being a tiny island, we have great fighters. That doesn't only apply to boxing or karate, it also applies to every martial arts. And what we do here is that we balance those stuff. We teach the foundation, obviously, because without foundation, we don't have anything. And we develop from there. But in my case, what I do is I develop first all the basic techniques that they need, like how to throw, how to punch, how to block, how to kick, how to sweep. And once we are proficient in that, then we start adding other stuff, more techniques. And mostly we start above, on top, like hand-to-hand combat. Then we start including kicks. Then we start including sweeps, and then locks, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's like a process. It's not, first day, I'm gonna throw you to the floor.
Right.
You know,
Gradual.
because if you don't know how to fight, I have to give you at least the basic tools to do so.
Yeah, and I can attest, I mean, you guys in Puerto Rico really are really good fighters, man. I mean, obviously I've seen you guys fight many times. I fought some of your guys over the years. And we were always impressed when you would come up like to New York, when we would have the gatherings, or even when we go to Puerto Rico, you guys would like, the fighting would be like, man, these guys can get down. You know, some schools are like, okay, they're really good at forms, but then you guys were always like, but Puerto Rico, man, those guys can fight. And you guys, one thing I like about that I gotta say with Puerto Rico, you guys got a lot more of the like younger people, a lot of younger students like really start. It seems like they start earlier. Would you say
Yes.
so, maybe?
Yeah, I got like kids that started with me at the age of 6, 7 years old, and by 13, they're killing machines. You know,
Right.
you know, they're developed. You know, some techniques, some strength, abilities that you know everybody can see them.
Yeah.
And I'm not a man of going to events. I'll do maybe 1 or 2 events a year, just you know, to bring the kids, because sometimes they ask me to. But because we concentrate in hand-to-hand combat and how to defend ourselves, it's not like a point fighting. You know, it's not the same thing.
Now, speaking of that, you mentioned Master Julio. Obviously, he was I trained with him. He's my Sifu also. Just for people, and also for me, because I never really knew how that worked. How did you get to become like his student and like his disciple and work with him? How did that happen?
Well, it happens that Tomas Torres was in the island, and Julio Perez came to develop Ying Jow Pai in Puerto Rico.
Right.
So by that time, I was under Leong Fu wing, and we have events, we have activities. I do activities like summer camps and stuff like that, and we are always been like welcome other people from the system, regardless where they came from or whatever, and we join all together. So I used to invite, in this case, Julio and Tomas, I invite them and other schools, and they reached me and they told me, Eric, you have, fantastic abilities. And by that time, I used to practice with Leon Fu remotely because I have to travel to the States to get more material because he wasn't in the island established. So what I did is that I make a decision for my future and my students and my development as an instructor. And I talked to Leon Fu and I send them a formal letter because you cannot serve God and the devil,
Yeah.
And I'm very clear in that. So I was very clear with him, this is not that I don't happy with your teachings. It's just a matter of professional developing what I'm making this decision. And then, because I have the opportunity to have a Sifu with me in the island that I can train with him at least once a week. It was a huge difference. It was merely professional developing and looking for the future of my school. It turns out to be the greatest decision I make.
Yeah. Well, the segment's called 5 Crucial Questions for Kung Fu Masters. You ready to do that?
Sure.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Technique-wise, is the same thing. The essence is there, so you can subtract from there. And forms, obviously they have like some trademarks that they make to make it different from other systems, and I can completely understand that. For me, what is important is the technique. If the technique is the same, it doesn't matter how you do it. If the essence is there, that's what is important for me. And but fighting is when I started learning Shum's Ying Jow Pai, it opened my eyes completely. It was a whole different world for me. I'm speaking in a matter of fighting, defending myself. My fighting turned and switched completely different. So it was like a phenomenal experience. And nowadays, until today, I still seeking and I'm still learning and reaching and finding new stuff. Like I can do this with this, I can do this with that. So it's like don't ever stop seeking, because there's so much things you can get from a single technique that is unbelievable. There are two different things, obviously. Kung Fu tends to practice system, forms, weapons, fighting. Like I told you before, Shum's way, like I learned from my Sifus, is like 1 hour forms, 2 hours fighting. So what I truly believe in this is that many Sifus and masters live under the impression, I would say, like in a fantasy world, which I have this secret technique, or my Beam Max strike is gonna kill you, or I have this deadly blow. And we have to realize that we have passed that already. It's been a long way gone. It's very interesting that our late Grandmaster, Lao Fat Man, in the early 19s, he wrote a book talking about fighting, and on the Chimo Association by that time, he was talking about holistic fighting. And when he talked about holistic fighting, as my understanding of it is that it's like an MMA. You have to be a complete fighter. You have to dominate hand-to-hand combat, you have to dominate kicking, you have to dominate sweeping, and you have to dominate ground fighting. So somehow we have lost that perception over time. But in Shum Jinjao's and our school here in Puerto Rico, we have been always practicing both things. We have to try, or we try to make as as more complete fighters as we can. And that happened to everybody. It's not only in Kung Fu. You can do the same thing with karate and you can do the same thing with Taekwondo. It's not different, okay? The thing with MMA is that they practice fighting every single day. So, and they dedicate to that. So they're gonna be, obviously, they're gonna be proficient and they're gonna be good. I think, you know, we have ground to develop, you know, I think like to be at MMA level nowadays, we will have to start developing little kids consistently. If you do that and you develop these people like that, they can be hand to hand with any MMA because we have the techniques, we have the tools, and we have the knowledge. That is in our system. It's not something that we have to invent. It's in our system. It's just that we don't practice enough to be proficient as MMA. I do have a couple of kids that could reach black belt by age 12, 13, but they're being with me since age 5. So, like I told you, in 5 years I can take these kids and put it on another level. And but it has to be consistent. And we have 2 different curriculums. We have one curriculum for kids and one curriculum for adults. Obviously, kids are more addressed to develop techniques, foundation, self-control, self-defense. And once they reach the level of black belt in kids, black belt, then I start teaching them the adult stuff.
That makes sense.
More techniques, more difficult techniques, because they have the experience, they have the maturity to understand what they're doing by that age. They can become a junior black belt, but they still training and they still developing more and more techniques and more complex movements.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm gonna follow up on that because I think that's a good point you made. You do have junior black belts, but then I also think, I know what you're saying with the development, but then there's also still so much a 12-year-old or a 13-year-old can do physically, right? When it comes to fighting, can really, like, even if you're a real black belt at 13, can you fight a grown man at 25? Really? Maybe maturity-wise, yes, but physically, I guess what I'm saying is that a good or bad thing to give them kind of a false sense of security? You have the black belt, but if you're, God forbid, in a bad situation where you got to fight like a 25-year-old guy who's like a big dude and you're 12, you're really going to have that, you know what I mean?
Well, you know, it's like everything. If you take any 12-year-old kid, you know, he's going to be in a disadvantage over an adult.
Yeah.
What I'm saying, and don't get me wrong, when they reach a black belt, they have a proficiency at his level. I mean, a person that is more or less the same age, the same weight, even if it's a little bigger, they will have proficiency in fighting, ground fighting, because, you know, I developed those skills on the kids. Puerto Ricans have a rich mix of cultures. We have the Taino Indians, we have Spain, we have African American, we have all those together. So we are used to see each other as Puerto Rican, because you can see white Puerto Ricans, you can see Latino Puerto Ricans, you can see Afro-American Puerto Ricans, and we're all one race. So, you know, for us, it's nothing different. We don't treat each other like badly. We don't say mean stuff, because for us, we're used to, like, you know, together all the time. It's not a matter of, oh, you're white, I'm black, you know, that doesn't happen here. For us over here, that's not an issue.
That's good, because I think also because you guys are on the island, also it's a little different. Are there any real Asian instructors in Puerto Rico? Are there?
Well, right nowadays, I don't think so. Okay. On the past, we have some real Japanese people teaching. We have some Korean people teaching, and a couple of Chinese. But Chinese culture in Puerto Rico, they like separate. They you know, they have their own clubs and stuff like that. You know, they don't mix with other people mostly. Forms are like an encyclopedia, like a dictionary. Is where you look for your techniques, and they're there to discover. So you have to be aware that it is important. Like in a single technique, you cannot stop. This is not only one way of doing things. There are different ways of doing things, and you have to take as much as you can from it. We encourage always, like, to be creative, to be curious, like to develop whatever you feel inside. You know, sometimes I have people fighting, and a way of teach, and that it works for me, is like we go slow motion. So I want you to throw something and give you the time to think. But this is when you're a beginner, and there's where the creative part takes in. Like, you have to think what you're gonna be doing. So once you do whatever you have to do and you counterattack, the other person has to do the same thing. Most of the people that you're gonna fight on the street, they don't know how to fight, and you have to be prepared for everything. So normally what we do is just throw me a punch any way you like, because, you know, I'm not supposed to be knowing what to expect. So I can expect anything to happen.
Yeah, no, it's true, because, you know, in the street, anything can happen, and you got to train for it.
And it's like I always tell my people, 90%, you can see all the fights in video that you like. 90% of the fights, they end in the floor. And you have to be able to defend yourself in the floor. And that's why we teach ground fighting.
Which is great, and I'm glad you guys do. I think, honestly, in my opinion, more Ying Jow Pai schools especially should really teach more ground stuff. But I think it's something where we can always work on it and improve, like in any system. But I really think that's the one thing that's lacking in the other schools. So I'm honest about that. How about self-defense techniques? Do you think there are a couple things that you can show? I know we're on Zoom, but maybe some stuff you can show me that you've done with your students in the past, that maybe just basics, so anybody that's watching be like, oh, I can do that, or I could probably do that.
Yes, definitely.
Alrighty, there we go. Another 5 questions answered. As always, share, subscribe, and check out some other videos you might like while you're here. Thanks again to Sifu Eric Cintron and his students for being a part of this video.
This is Eric Cintron from Kung Fu Chronicles. Thanks for the invitation, and see you in the next one.
Okay guys, stay safe. See you in the next round, and keep punching.